So there are two religious things that we can do. One is fasting and one is feasting. More or less every religion will have these two events. And of course, fasting has become extremely popular in connection with health. And intermittent fasting is supposed to have many, many health benefits. Why? Because our way, way back ancestors learned how to manage without food for long periods of time. And I suppose we all had breakfast this morning, means that we broke our fast. So that is to do with health. But if you're fasting for health reasons, chances are that you have made the fundamental error of thinking that you are embodied. And that's a problem, because that is our main obstacle. We are restricted by our association with our physical appearance and our physical condition. And then how that relates to other physical individuals and physical circumstances. We set up a kind of strategy where we as an individual have to survive. And looking for food, of course, is an essential thing. We were discussing a little earlier, propagating the species and eating and drinking to keep alive are the two primary genetic directives which keep us here. But you see, when we're looking for a goal, I don't think anybody says my goal is to be unhappy. So our primary goal seems to be unending happiness. And if we are not physically well, if we're not mentally settled, then we won't be very happy. So what we call happiness is just a temporary positive condition. It means that our bank account is okay. As soon as our bank account is not okay, we're unhappy. As soon as we go hungry, we're not. As soon as we're dispossessed from our home, we're not happy. Today there are more refugees in this world than anywhere else or any time in history. So generally we can say 8 billion people are there. A good, substantial amount are malnourished. We don't think about that because we live in first world countries, developed countries. And so we have a distance, we have a disconnect with the majority of our fellow humanity. So the ancient people understood one very important lesson. If you want food, there must be rainfall. Mother Nature plays that drama where water is evaporated from the seas, salt is left behind, it collects in clouds, it circulates because of the rotation of the earth, winds are there, cloud accumulation is there, and rainfall happens. And because of rainfall, we get things that grow. And the whole landscape changed when we developed cereal foods. Previously, it was all wild forests, marshes probably, and so on. Certainly in the west of Ireland, it's like that. And when we discovered that we can cultivate food, our whole digestive system had to change. And the landscape also changed. Forests were removed and fields were planted everywhere. And then, of course, husbandry, keeping livestock and so on and so forth, all of that agriculture developed. And very often we're asked, what about vegetarianism? What has that got to do with spirituality? Now the Chandogya Upanishad gives us an interesting perspective on this. It tells us that pure food creates pure thought. It's a very interesting perspective, and that is taken in two separate ways. Shankaracharya calls this food anything that the sense organs receive. It is a kind of food. It is a food for the mind and food for our experience. And the recipients of that, the same as every single cell, biological cell, that information is taken in internally. A kind of digestion or assimilation takes place, and a reaction takes place as a result of that. But you see, the Taittiriya Upanishad tells us that you may think that this body is your own self, but actually it is just an outer shell, a layer, and it is made from yesterday's or today's breakfast and yesterday's lunch. That's all. Yesterday's pasta or rice comes out as today's body. Intermittent fasting seems to be fine. That seems to be well researched over some 25 years or so. But then you see, if you fast to extreme, then you upset the saline balance in the body, the essential electrolyte in the body, and you will fall sick. And there's an example, again, from the Chandogya Upanishad. Go without food for several days. I'll ask you some questions now. You go without food for several days. I re-ask the questions. Or you learn something. I'll re-examine it. And you'll find yourself in a state of confusion. So there's a connection between what you eat and how you think. And vegetarianism is a non-discussion in spiritual life. The only thing is this, that if we are to function with an instrument called the body, made from yesterday's food, if you are to go through life with an internal instrument, a refined internal instrument, the mind, there's a connection between the quality that you have of food, the capacity to assimilate and digest it and eliminate it, or eliminate any waste products from it. You see, there was a man called Alexis Carrel. He wrote a book, Man the Unknown. He got a Nobel Prize. He did some research. He took cells from a chicken's heart. He was able to sustain them for 10 years. And normally a chicken that is beyond a chicken's lifespan, he did it by keeping the cells alive in laboratory conditions, feeding exactly the right calculated nutrients coming in, and taking off exactly the right waste products out. Keeping that kind of balance. And with that, he was able to sustain it. Why 10 years? He ended the experiment, that's all. Otherwise, he would have continued indefinitely. He hypothesized that every person, every entity constituted of organic cells, if they have this balance, this purity, purity means no accumulation of waste products and exactly the right nutrients coming in. Now, if you examine the human diet, you'll see that we are way off this. We're not exactly taking the pristine nutrients in quality and quantity in, and we are not necessarily eliminating things out for various reasons. Sedentary life is a reason. And also maybe unsettled mental stability because food is used as a compensation. In all other biological species, food is not used as a compensation. It's used as a sustaining thing. It's a necessary thing. If you don't eat, you starve. And so all the animals are constantly looking for food. We think the birds that fly nicely are so serene and beautiful, we wish we could fly. Actually, they're searching for food. The whole of the animal kingdom is looking for food. And what changed is our discovery of fire. In our discovery of fire, we realized we don't have to waste time looking for food and digesting foodstuff that takes a long time to digest, difficult to digest, leaves and so on. We can now actually cook the food and short-circuit the time of looking for food, increase the capacity of digestion and the time necessary to digest food, and give us leisure time to contemplate the deeper things of life around a fire where we can gaze into the flames and think more deeply and imagine more deeply and tell stories around the fire. And now we have an increase in human culture and a capacity to examine things which have a more profound meaning and discover that we can actually replicate our experiences on cave walls in terms of art. And art and culture is something that we do. It's something no other species does. So why should there be this love of aesthetics that we have? This love of aesthetics comes because within us there must be an urge for perfection. And that urge for perfection will lead us to happiness. But the instrumentation that we are using has to be in a pristine condition also. So we have to take a revaluation. Instead of saying my body, my mind, we can say the divine temple or the divine housing. Instead of saying my mind, we can say the Lord's sitting room, God's creative office, if you want. We clean that God's creative office through prayer, japa, meditation, and we clean the body through externally. We decorate it, no doubt, as we decorate a building. We clothe it nicely. But you see, if it is an earth car, the right kind of fuel has to be put in. And when we talk about vegetarianism, all we're examining is what is the right food to feed in, the right fuel to run the car. And the right food means carefully selected, but also the ingredient of what we call sattva has to be there. And purity in this sense is not so much to do with hygiene, but to do with vibration. That is, you see, you can have beautiful food prepared in a restaurant with no idea what's happening in the kitchen, whether sneezing is taking place, whether, if it's presented well, that's fine. Otherwise, you have to be careful of the salmonella special that is being served. And so in the kitchen, there is no idea that the actual process of preparation is a loving process. In some it may be, I'm not saying all, but generally speaking, the commercial enterprise of providing food is impersonal. Same thing with processed foods. Manufactured food, an impersonal thing. The quality of the food may be good, but what makes it pure is food that is prepared with love and in such a way that it is a kind of offering. In this sense, the whole universe is an interaction between food and eater. Again, the Upanishads. We can view the whole of so-called creation as a whole process of eater and eaten and what is being eaten. In other words, transformational causation. There's no death in it. There's only a transformation of the form. That's it. And so if you remember, I often joke, supposing the Swami falls down with a heart attack tomorrow because he's not eating correctly maybe or something, or he's under stress. But somebody remembers there's a plot of land that he had his eye on, please bury this body there. They put it in the ground. It's not dead because it is food. It's food for maggots and worms and other things. And then that decomposes and produces nitrogen, makes the soil nice and rich. Somebody sees the fertility of it, plants potatoes there. People consume these potatoes, munch and crunch on it, huff and puff on the free oxygen delivered by plants, and give back carbon dioxide, a wonderful arrangement, using carbohydrates. They have no idea that they're munching the Swami. So we are all in this phase of transformational causation, and the basis of it really can be described as food. So matter and life, the Taittiriya Upanishad tells us, from food are produced whatever creatures dwell on the earth. So it's anadvai prajaha prajayanti. Food, from food is produced whatever creatures are dwelling on the earth. And moreover, by food alone they live. And then also into it they pass at the end. Food truly is the eldest born of beings. In other words, spiritual life seems to originate with food. What we eat, taking care of what we eat. And food, according to Shankaracharya, in the sense of selective information, selective things that we bring in. Broadly speaking, we call this viveka, discernment. We discern everything, what is useful to us, what is not. A constant exercise in deciding what kind of information we want to put in such a way that we are elevating our mind continuously. May noble thoughts come to us from all sides, is the prayer. We have to be careful what the eyes are light on, what the ears are light on, control of the senses. I recently gave a meditation process in the UK. And in this meditation process, I quoted several passages, which sounds like a circularity. If you want to meditate, what's the first thing? It's not to sit down. The first thing we have to do is to control the senses. In other words, control the food coming in, as Shankaracharya interprets it. Ramanuja interprets it, all the passages in a different way. He's saying that food is sattvic food. He's taking it literally as physical food. Both are correct, of course. So, in terms of meditation, we have to control the senses. Without controlling the senses, how can we get peace of mind? Without peace of mind, how can we meditate? That question is posed. And yet, we meditate, many people meditate, in order to get peace of mind. You see the circularity. But you see, if you spend your whole 99.99% of your waking life thinking of all kinds of things, then you'll miss this understanding. Because when you sit, they'll start crowding in. There'll be the traffic noises during so-called meditation. And then you'll get up and discuss, I can't meditate. Why? Well, when I sit down, the mind goes here and there, and so on and so forth. My answer, join the human race. Please start off by adjusting things in situ in your waking life before you sit for meditation. Do that. Then when you sit, it'll be easy. Otherwise, you'll be growling at God and nothing will happen. So we have to be careful about the selection of food. And fasting, when we do it, we have to examine, are we doing it for health reasons? In other words, an egocentric position, or are we doing it because we want to use that, even in terms of health, as a way of purifying the body to make it a good instrument. In other words, for divine service, for engaging this earth car for good, positive, selfless reasons. And to make sure, you see, the Upanishad gives us this alternative. If you wish to live 100 years, many don't wish to do it. So-called normal lifespan. If you wish to live 100 years, then make sure that you do all your activity as ritualistic activity. Whether it's walking, whether it's working, whether it's talking, whatever it's doing, whether it's eating, whatever activity you do. And so the practical way of doing this in life would be to take every single opportunity we can as a way of practicing the divine presence. The fundamental book there, Brother Lawrence, Practicing the Divine Presence. Do that always, elevate the mind. And then it's not just a question of selecting the right sense food that you're taking in, but it is also using it in a highly elevated way. What does that mean? When we see things with the eyes, we should only see the divine. When we hear things for the ear, we should only hear the divine voice. When we sense things through the skin, we should sense the life breath of the divine. When we sit alone, we should sense that the divine is within us, operating the movement of the lungs, pumping the heart, renewing the cells, digesting our food. So the fundamental question that I always ask, who digests your food? Now, if you say you digest your food, I can't imagine how that works. You ate some food, you put a spoon down, you gave a stir. I don't think so. Some entity is doing it for you, lovingly, and not only doing it for you, but for all creatures. What is the evidence of a divine loving entity sustaining and preserving you, giving you the opportunity for a protective field. That entity is an entity that freely gives, and freely gives the capacity to digest for all creatures to sustain their life. For what purpose? So that they can unfold toward this divinity. We were talking earlier about evolution, the unfolding. We are all unfolding. The whole of nature is an unfolding process, moving toward the divine. The problem is we are thinking in human time frames. But time itself is just a way of looking at a thing. Most of us would think that time is like a river flowing, with events passing on. But modern science tells us something different. From 1905, modern science would tell us that space and time come in as opposites, and that time comes in as a minus and space comes in as a plus. And if we take that equation that always works, infallibly works, it has never been proven not to work. You see, the way things work in science is that if you have one exception, your whole theory is gone. We can say all crows are black, but that's not necessarily true. As soon as you see an orange one, the whole thing is gone. You can say, I saw a lot of crows and they were all black. But as soon as there's a possibility of one which is not black, the whole thing is gone. So that is how we establish what is true. Now, there are prescriptions for types of food, and fasting and feasting is all balanced with moderation. Feasting, of course, different from fasting, is communally using the sense organs in a different way. We can do it in the egocentric way, that is called greed. Or we can do it in a generous way, sharing the food and celebrating some special divine event which is there. This is feasting. In Christianity, there are feast days. There is Eid in Islam, celebrating that. The Jewish people also have feast days as well. Every religion you can think of has this combination of fasting and feasting, but fasting is more associated with asceticism. What is asceticism? It means we want to strengthen the will by controlling the senses, not just the sense of taste, but all the senses. For example, during Ramadan, which is very, very ascetically directed, in other words, not even taking water. There's that kind of fasting. Of course, there are other types of fasting associated with political movements, demonstrations. There are fasting to make a point. Mahatma Gandhi fasted for these reasons. Bobby Sands in Ireland fasted for these reasons. So there are many protest kinds of fasting, no doubt. And even that has a higher kind of moral message for us, a kind of nobility to it, no doubt. But you see, what we should do typically is balance. What did Buddha do? He went to extreme in terms of fasting and discovered this wasn't doing anything except damaging the earth car, the instrument that is there for revelation. And so he then discovered a middle way. Bhagavad Gita will tell us this, and it tells us this in context of meditation. It will tell us, Yuktahara viharasya yukta chitasya karmasu. For him who is moderate in what? In eating. Even before that, success in spiritual practice, which you can call yoga, is not for him. And more specifically, meditation, because of the 18 chapters, only one chapter is really dedicated to meditation, dhyana, and that is 6th chapter. And here, success in concentration, because all yoga is concentration, regardless of what it is not for that one who eats too much, nor for one who eats too little. Kind of balance. Now, what is too much, too little? All right. Supposing you wake up in the morning, I hope you all do, and you decide that you feel heavy in the stomach. Then what it means is that you never really digested things properly in the night. Either you ate too late or the food wasn't suitable. In which case the yogis who never make that mistake, but supposing they do, will then have to expel that material. They do it through a specific technique, and they have a series of kriyas, that is, purification practices. And they have an understanding of quantity. You see, if you take your hands and go like that, then half of this shall be solid food. That means, of course, the food that we take in has got pockets of air. So when you squeeze it all down and condense it nicely, the one side of your twofold outstretched hands will be solid food. The other half will be divided, half air, half water. Now, taking that with the best will in the world, you may discover most people are overeating and therefore unconsciously feasting. Chewing the food slowly, we say that prayer, Brahmapanam Brahmahave, before meals. That is, we take eating as a sacrifice, as a sacrificial activity, as we should take all activities, with a certain mindfulness and awareness. If you are eating mindfully, with a certain sense of reverence, that this food, all food, is sacred, supplied in a sacred way, starting from the whole universe arranging the earth, the whole universe arranging the earth arranging the condition of the drama of rainfall or evaporation, rainfall, growth, consumption, and even the modern idea of extending that into reaping the food, let us say wheat, and then grinding it, milling it, packaging it, transporting it, all of those kinds of things. Hundreds of people involved in the processing of, let us say, one loaf of bread. And if you are thankful for that, if you notice it and are thankful for that, not only do you get an internal elevation of spirit about it, a kind of sense of wonder, adoration, and thankfulness, but that positive attitude is transforming every cell in the same way. Your physical cells are exactly what you think. And then what you think, with the transformation of cells, is extended to the wider universe. Because thought, there's no limitation on it. You can't say it begins here, it ends there. It travels everywhere, and we know where it arises from. There is only one thinker, one knower, one witness. That is the divine self that we call Atman or Brahman, same thing. Where does thought come from? It comes from a cosmic mind that people call a personal God, a creative mind, that out of which all the variation comes. So when we're thinking, don't say I'm thinking. I'm a recipient of divine grace that comes as thought, with a thinker behind it, sending me a flow, a current of mental energy, psychic energy, that I decide to use or misuse. I can waste it or I can use it. I can shape something creative and noble from it, some higher thing from it. And it occurs every split second. A blank check comes unused. What will I put into it? That I have to decide. This is the game that I have to play, game of guiding thought. And I have to notice that food and everything else comes in three conditions. So, yoga is not for him who eats too much or for him who eats too little. It is not for him who sleeps too much or sleeps too little. How much sleep should we get? Well, it depends. Depends how much anxiety you have to start with. Sleep is not 100% restful, because the studies will show that Sleep comes as a pattern. It starts off, you drift into a kind of amorphous condition, a semi-conscious state, almost like a kind of dreamy state. And from there's a pattern. And we can measure it in brainwaves. By measuring brainwaves, we can see the rapid eye movement where dream takes place, and then followed by a deep sleep, followed by, and that whole pattern is repeated 4 or 5 times a night. And with each end of a cycle, we shift our position. So you're physically moving. Now, what is the state that yogis have discovered? There's a state called yoga nidra, where total relaxation of body and mind happens, a kind of cleaning off of a whiteboard in preparation for concentration. You put something useful in. And then, of course, meditation is the most relaxing of things. So those who meditate more will sleep less. And you know, of course, the maximum amount of sleep. What's the maximum amount of sleep?
9 hours.
5 minutes more.
Oh.
Everybody wants 5 minutes more, isn't it? So you see, 7 hours is a good average sleep, and scientifically that seems accurate. Studies have shown that 7 hours is ideal for most people. But supposing you're physically and mentally exhausted, even though there's no possibility of mental exhaustion, anxiety translates to disturbance in the body. So you see, thought itself does not tire, but anxiety is very tiring. And anxiety is looking to possibilities of the future with a sense of stress. It hasn't arrived yet. No need to be anxious. And that anxiety is there only because we don't tune our attention in to the present moment, where pure existence is there. Tuning our attention into the glory of self is called spiritual life. That is the spiritual way for everyone. So you see, for him who is moderate in eating and also in recreation, recreation is necessary also, some time off, tempered in their efforts, in actions. In other words, not going to any extreme, regulated in sleep and wakefulness. Yoga, that is concentration, becomes the destroyer of misery. And when the mind, completely controlled, rests or alights on the glory of the internal self, that alone, free from desire for objects, that is, free from an idea that I have gaps in me that can be filled from the outside, then one is said to be established in yoga. Now there's a chapter, of course, in that same Bhagavad Gita, which divides everything into 3 kinds of energies, or 3 modes. You're familiar with them. These are binding elements, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. The whole universe is only made from these 3 ingredients. Is this only according to the ancient people? No, according to the modern scientists as well. We have gravity, that is, that nature wants to unite everything. We have electrical energy, that nature wants to disperse everything and creates a nice balance between the two. The struggle between the proton and the electron is only that gravity wants to wind things in, electrical energy wants to wind things out. And then we have inertia. That is, your car doesn't want to go anywhere until you force it. And once you force it, it doesn't want to stop. So there's a reason for all these things. There are 3 components, and there are 3 components in the mind, and there are 3 components in food, there are 3 components in everything. It can be divided like this. So what kind of food should we eat? Well, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas tells us that we can have food which is pure. We can have food that fuels our egocentricity. And we can have food which lowers us completely, tamasic food. We can begin with the last one. Now, these are only 3 stanzas, and yet they contain a great wealth of information. Yata yaman gatarasam pariyositam chayat. That which is badly cooked. We can pause there and examine what we mean badly cooked. Well, we have to understand that any food which is not easily digested is not good for us. That is why we see that we view that the digestion is caused by Vaishvanara, that is, the divine as digestive fire. And we're offering the offering into digestive fire. It is being consumed. Now, fire, you'll notice, has an elevated temperature. Don't put your hand in it. You'll burn it. And so we notice that the body's temperature, 38 and odd, 38 degrees centigrade plus, is there. Internal heat is created. There's a reason for that. You know it. And how people survive in temperatures, let's say in Delhi, of 50 degrees, it's very, very difficult. You have to lower the temperature. You'll get heat stroke. So this temperature being maintained, let us say by the Lord of the universe, lovingly does it for you. You're not doing it yourself. Nor are you pumping your heart yourself. Nor are you raising your diaphragm muscle up and down for breathing. Some life-giving entity is doing it for you. If you want to know where is God, some people who are atheistic say, or even agnostic will say, or persuaded, in principle there's something there, but I can't relate to it. Well, please find your pulse. Press in your pulse and then ask the question, where's it coming from? What's causing it? Now, if you know your physiology, it's the heart. Then the next question, what's pumping the heart? Now, inevitably, you can't say, I'm doing it. So, something is doing it. The worst thing you can possibly do then is to be irreverent toward it. Not to thank it. Not to have a sense of adoration about it. So, how do we do that? Very easy. If you want a formula for doing that, eat ice cream. Anything cold, douse that fire out. And then, poor Lord, put it in this way, has to readjust the temperature. What kind of devotion is that? What kind of love of God is that? And then combined with that, you're combining sugars and fats. Edinburgh University came up with an amazing study. After years of research, they came up with this statement. Consuming fat makes you fat. I could have told them this. But you have to research it and so on and so forth. Yes, this is true. You don't need research and data and all that to know that. And when you combine carbohydrates and fats, not only does it become fattening, but it also becomes addictive. But apart from that, you're putting cold in. So hot is for the inside, cold is for the outside. There's a reason why the body is immersed in temperature generally colder than itself. It is to allow perspiration, cooling of the body, and so on. It's well designed. So, that which is badly cooked, that is made to be indigestible, yet tasty, tasteless also, the other side of it, putrid, stale, unclean, and left over is the food liked by the Tamasic people. And what will that be? Tamasic people will feel lazy, indolent, they'll be phlegmatic, no interest in life. And that also creates an over effect of a temperament, because people will be angry, irritated by that. There's all the things that are implied by the word tamas, meaning darkness, ignorance. They will be dull and lazy and ignorant, people of that type. Then what is the hope for spiritual life for them? Just because of food. And so Of course, attachment to the body will be there. Tamasic characteristic will always be egocentricity. Now, if you take some examples of putrid and stale things, well, perhaps yeast, perhaps anything made from yeast. I'm only suggesting. You will work it out for yourself. Perhaps things which have become delicacies because they are putrid. Anyway, these are things that you can research yourself and decide, should you be eating those kinds of things and what kind of effect they have. With this one criteria, food should be easily digestible. Not only in the way you eat it, but the content of what you eat. But then you see, food that is excessively, food that is excessively bitter, excessively sour, salty, hot, pungent. I've heard people say, oh, I love hot food. It burns my stomach and everything, but still I love it. Okay. People sneezing and sweating, red in the face, and paying money for it also. Interesting. Pungent, dry, burning. These are liked by the Rajasika people. Now you say, see, it's not saying they're wrong. It's only saying they're liked by Rajasika people. That's all. People who want some heat in their step. And naturally, that will lead to aggression. That will lead to frustration. The food, the temperament will match the food, there's no doubt. But apart from that, the food, it says, is productive. Ahara, the food, rajasyesta dukkha sakamaya pradaha. Productive of pain, physical pain, productive of grief, mental pain, productive of disease. Don't blame other things. Don't think that it's our natural condition to be unhealthy and diseased. No, we're not made like that. Apart from maybe a few genetic diseases. That is possible. Hodgkin's disease and so on. These are genetic things, no doubt. Some diseases will be intestinal diseases like Crohn's disease. There may be some genetic thing there and so on. But these are relatively rare. But by and large, the wonder of the human body is its health, is its capacity to deal with anything and modify anything, even to the point of the human cell. The DNA, the nucleus of a cell, deoxyribonucleic acid, contains all our architectural plan, whatever we were, whatever we are, whatever will be in the future. But it's only a plan, it's not the architect. It's just an architectural plan. What is the architect? The entire cell, apparently. And the brain of the cell will be on the membrane. And the study of that is called epigenetics. So we know that there's an element of high intelligence and that any mistake in replications, the whole cell, it seems, rallies around to make a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. So stochasm, that is, stochastic change, that is, some kinds of unconscious modifications that may be there, some kinds of variability that may be there. Yes, that is true, but the cell, by and large, knows how to deal with it. One teardrop diluted in 20-liter bucket of water contains Lysol as a germ killer. The skin itself is a germ killer. And if things get past that, you have cilia here to cause some coughing and take off foreign material. And then hydrochloric acid is sitting in the stomach, dealing with all the rest. And then antibodies are there, which easily get like an army directed to areas of problem. You cut your skin. Within a very short period of time, the white blood cells come and make a repair job. They start that process. Then how can we possibly say that we can fall into disease? Well, we have to go back to this great experiment done, Man the Unknown, by Alexis Carrel, where he sustained the cells of a chicken's heart. We can select the right nutrients with the right attitudes, with a sense of thankfulness, a sense of reverence, an elevated sense of adoration. And then the assimilation will be good. If you are angry, then don't be surprised that when you put food in your mouth, the digestive system says, oh, the boss says anger is on the menu today. And you get indigestion. Please don't be surprised by it. So, productive of pain and grief and disease. If that's what you want, then make sure that you have Rajasic food. And then, what is the highest type of food? Now, it's only one stanza is put here, but good for understanding. Ayuha sattva balarogya sukha priti vivardhanaha. Food that promotes what? Vitality, awakeness, energy. People don't say, I am tired. Strength. You see, if you're struggling with your digestion, you'll always feel tired. Strength, health, joy, cheerfulness. In other words, all the attributes you require for spiritual life, which are appetizing. Yes, food is supposed to be tasty. That is why feasting is a glorious thing, no problem. Soothing, nourishing, agreeable. In other words, not giving you indigestion, and liked by the Sattva. Now, let's come to vegetarianism. What is the best thing for the digestion to conform to this criteria, easy to digest? It is food, anything that promotes vitality, strength, and so on and so forth. So we're not making a rule about it. You can decide on your own what food meets this criteria. Is it giving you vitality? Is it giving you energy? In other words, is it easy to digest? Of course, raw meat you cannot digest because we're not designed like that. A lion is designed like that. A lion is designed to chew bones and tear at flesh and so on and so forth. Its nature is highly rajasic. Ask any zebra grazing nicely in the grass whether a lion is aggressive or not. Yes. So, this is why in many, many traditions, monastic traditions, a dietary requirement is there. In Christian monasticism is there. There's one monastery that has, from medieval times, that has a refectory for the recovering people, sick people. Monks reporting sick, go to a special refectory. But the general refectory, the rules are there. And there are dietary rules, strict dietary rules, even concerning about meat and so on and so forth. And then some monks, of course, in medieval period, find a caveat, find a way out. They say, well, let me report sick, then I can change my diet. All the things that were prohibited, I can now enjoy. There are those kinds of food restrictions are there in the Mount Athos, amongst the Greek monks there. They're there amongst Buddhist monks and nuns. They're there amongst all kinds of varieties of people. So I'm making no pronouncement about it. You judge for yourself what is easily digestible and what is sattvik. But pure food will give you pure thought. And the more subtle of the food will come out really as mental capacity. The gross of the food, the coarse of the food will come out probably as nail and hair and so on, like that. So this is in terms of general comments about fasting and feasting. Both have their place. And both are there in the context of what must be valuable for us in terms of refining our thought. And to bear in mind that actually matter and life can be classified in this way. And that we are everything comes as eater and eaten. This is the pattern of nature. When we redirect this and refine things, it comes out as refined of thoughts and intentions. So that generally we want to misidentify or de-identify, I should say, with our psychophysical being, body and mind complex, and take ourselves as the essence of spirit. And in that adventure of self-discovery, we make sure that our instrumentation is pure, body and mind, not just food, but exercise. And food in the sense of taking in selected things that we want our attention to alight on, things which will be useful to us, not things which are damaging or deviating. Every deviation of our attention is so much delaying factor for us. Anyway, I think that's enough. So, but I'll take any last questions.
Swamiji, if we fall into bad eating habits, is it good then to fast for a few hours or days if we can, to kind of reboot the...
So we have to be careful not to make an exaggerated graph in our behavior. That is to, you see, balanced in all things. Because it could be like this: oh, we had a peak of difficult eating. Now we're going to have a peak of deprivation. There should be an evenness, really. So in the beginning, we should not fall into the trap. But supposing we do, well, then we have to take extraordinary measures, yes. And that is not just for, in naturopathy, fasting, let us say for 3 days, that is total fasting, other than taking in water, would be accompanied with measures to take off extraneous matter. You see, most of us have accumulated matter. You see that Alexis Carrel's experimentation took care of elimination as well as nutrition, inputs and outputs. And most of our disease is because we got the inputs, but didn't match it with the outputs. So where to store it? Now the body is hugely resilient. For years and years on end, it will store toxic material. It stores it as fat, and in extreme cases, will store it as... So if it's fat, then we know that we can fast because we're burning that off. But you can't do it to an extreme. There are fasts that can last for some 30, 40 days under supervision, and no deleterious effects on the body. In fact, every condition is repaired. Diabetes is repaired, cardiac conditions are repaired, many diseases are repaired in this way. But you see, it comes with elevated thinking. Supposing you fast, but are thinking of food. Supposing you fast and it's uncomfortable and you hate it. Will it be useful to you? Not really. So it has to be accompanied by an elevated sense of thinking. But as you see, if we have this accumulation and we acknowledge it, the fasting in naturopathy is accompanied by methods of elimination. For example, accompanied by enema and things like that, you see. And then with this caveat, because it's under supervision, that if you cannot do that, steam baths as well, I should say, increasing the capacity of the body to, sweat. It takes off toxic material like that. The human body has internal and external means. The only external means is the sweat pores. But otherwise, internal means would be increasing evacuation in all its ways, and increasing it comes off as carbon dioxide, burnt off like that through the lungs, or through the mucous lining as coughing, sneezing, and all that, purging and so on, in all these ways. These are all internal. External one is increase the capacity of the largest organ of the body, namely the skin. So we have to, this is now attempting to normalize. But then you see, we have to be careful because thereafter is maintenance. We have to be sure that maintenance is our norm, that we eat the right food in the right way. And what kind of food? Every person will have their individual food that suits them and food that doesn't. Everybody is constitutionally different. You have to determine what is good for you. So, and we all know really. You know. So everybody has love within them. The problem may be it's a love of chocolate. All right. You see, it's not your body. Don't think it's your body. It's your divine vessel that enables you to attain a sense of perfection. It's just your earth car. I rename it the earth car, you see. And then your occupation is cleaning it, making sure it is always clean. You see, cleaning it once will not be enough. Tomorrow, I think there's a cleaning day here. By the way, tomorrow there will still be question answer session tomorrow. But tomorrow is cleaning day. But why didn't you clean it every day? So there should be this everyday thing going on. Cleaning the body, cleaning the mind. And yes, there may be some emergency cleaning necessary. But you see, by doing this, you're revaluing it. This is not my body. It's, if you like, it's God's housing. Then you decorate it and clean it on the outside. And you do internal decoration and cleaning on the inside also, through exercise, eating, etc., right thinking and all that. And then you clean the mind, revaluing it not as my mind, but as God's sitting room, God's throne room. Clean it with meditation. Then somebody asks you, what's your occupation? I'm a cleaner. That's all that's necessary. These things I've told you before, so these are just repetitions of what you already know.
Thank you, Swamiji.
All right, all good. Okay. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you.